What's going on, guys? I'm here and I'm at home and I'm about to actually do a nice video review here with my boy Edwin Lou.
Oh, we
So
will
we got
try.
some of the so we actually got some of the video here. This is out from Cali. I was out there for the weekend and got a chance to drive his STX Lite RX8 fun car to drive. And so he kind of brought up the idea when we're just sitting there talking, hey, why don't you just do a video review on this stuff? I was like,
Yeah.
sure, why not? Let's take 40 minutes to try and figure out how the hell to do this.
Sounded so simple. We just turn on some webcams and microphones and that's it, right? No.
Yeah, not as simple, sadly, not as simple. So yeah, so here we go, boys. We're gonna try and see if I can tie this together. So I got my go-to going on. I actually don't even know how to start the record. Here it is. Boop. So I probably should have done that in the beginning, but oh well. We'll figure it out. So if the sound gets better, here you go. So this is just going to be raw for right now. We'll figure out editing things later. So what we're looking at here, Ed, is actually your run 4. So this was actually before I jumped in the car, right?
Yep.
So a little bit about the car. It's 2004 RX8. And it
Sure, why not? I don't know. It's 04. It's 4 or 5. It's the I think it's the first series before they did any kind of major revisions to it. So it's the worst one. It's the one that you don't want to get, but it's the one that you can find for nothing on Craigslist. Like this car was like $3,000.
There you go, boys. So then you got RX8, you got just some Coney shocks with some ground controls, and you have two 25 on 17 Rival S's. So they were pretty much brand new when you put them on the car, and the conditions outside was around 50 degrees, approximately 50, 60 degrees. It was on this run, it was a little damp, but the surface seems to have a similar level, whether it was a little damp or not. So the surface actually wasn't horrible. I've definitely seen a lot worse, but it does kick up some gravel as soon as you get into the side. So all right, now that we kind of went through the formalities, let's kind of get into the review here as we kind of break things down. So the start here, and hopefully this, since this is OBS, it's going to capture my actual mouse. So as we start off, we're actually making this nice 90-degree left bend. And then from there, the lights actually don't trip until a little while. But we have to make this right-hander. The way that I'm looking at it, and the way that I'm watching his eyes is trying to see where he's actually looking. So Ed, you can see here that you're actually panning your eyes, you're looking left, and I can actually tell that you're about to start looking over to your right. But good thing you're not actually directly focused on this cone. I know a lot of people end up doing that, and you're doing a good job actually seeing where you want to go. So for the folks watching it, the course is actually going to make a right bend, and then the lights are going to trip. So the lights actually trip over here by his A-pillar. And so we're going to just follow his eyes, which this happens to be in a good location so I can actually see where you're looking.
So that was totally planned.
Perfect. So as we're making the right turn here, you have a nice in cut. Let's hear when you got on the throttle. You did get on the throttle nice and quick here. So one of the things, as soon as you're making this right-hander, I'm trying to listen out to where you're getting on the throttle. So as you're coming in, you're doing a nice braking, judging your speed, getting nice and close to clipping that cone. But the biggest thing to me is where on earth are you actually getting on the throttle? So let's listen out for that. So to me, you got on the throttle just a little. You got on it. I would try and roll on it right now to help the throttle actually turn the car. So since you got the car slowed down enough for this element, now I want to actually start accelerating. So you were just a tick behind. You still had good throttle, but just a tick behind just to get the diff to help you make that turn a little bit more. So let's go through here. The car has a whopping 136 horsepower. So 31. It's nothing but 31. Flooring it right now. 31. So it's just a whopping flooring it all the way through. So as we're looking here, your hands are still unwinding. You're getting good position, and already you're backsiding this cone. You're good there. Unfortunately, what happened coming up next is that as you're turning in, that whip, let's see if it pays off. So that succession of whipping the car both left and right upsets and broke the balance of the car. So as we're coming in, as you're whipping it in here, the car can take it, but the car is still kind of loading up from your previous action. So as we're making, let's just say right left. So as we're coming in on right, car is loaded up on the left side of the car. And then now it's recovering, and then now you just jolted it. But the biggest part of this is that the amount of jolt with full power, because you're still on the throttle pretty well throughout that slalom, is actually what upset the car. It wasn't just it wasn't really your hands as much. So let's recap that for a second. I know we're holding on to this part, but this is actually a trend that goes throughout the video. So as we come through here, getting it, still on the throttle when you did that last jolt.
Yeah.
And now, unlike a transition, this is a slalom. I'm not slalom, but unlike the transition that we just had before, you're getting into a steady state. So now, as you're also full throttle, you're loading up the right side, and it's then making the car get into this drift. So as you're going to start countering, you have good hands, so you're starting to counter no problem. But instead of going full off throttle, as you did here, you're actually inducing more of the drift. So you don't want to get full off. You actually want to be partial throttle, the way that the Torsen really likes. So when you're partial throttle, since this car's balance was good and you're actually not getting any lifting, what I mean by lifting is that the inside rear tire, so your left tire in this instance, is not lifting off the ground. So now you can actually be partial throttle because you have full contact patch, meaning that the Torsen can work at any time you want. So we can just go ahead and continuously partial throttle through this to have good control. But since you let go, and now we're just kind of letting it drift, letting it finish out, and now we're getting back on the throttle, you had good hands, you corrected yourself, you got back in. So good thing your eyes are always looking at where you wanted to go, which is always a key thing. People always say, keep your eyes up.
Can we step back to the slalom?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what happens here, it's like, yeah, let's just play through. I think I get a little late on the second cone, and that's why I'm doing a very violent kind of flick to the right. And I think when that happened, I almost mentally got behind it. I didn't think about the sweeper coming after it. So you get late and you're like, okay, I need to be more aggressive to get back in time. And so big hard right, big hard left, and then by that time I realized, oh wait, I'm already out of the slalom. I didn't need to do a big aggressive move back to the left. Do you think I could have, in that situation, used a little more space to run off on the right side? Because the last slalom cone doesn't really matter at that point, does it?
No, because the way that I'm actually approaching this, yes, it is a slalom approach. So the way that I'm going through this is actually anytime I see a 3-cone slalom, it's actually just a lane change to me. So I'm trying to figure out what's coming up next. So in this case, I'm not worried so much about being let's move the camera a little bit. So I'm not worried too much about perfectly backsiding each cone per se. I'm just trying to use as much power to track out as much as possible and get through this. Now, again, the top high-end drivers will keep that in consideration. Like, I want to come in here backsiding these cones. But in this case, hey, if you don't, it doesn't kill you. Is it slower? Yes, but it doesn't kill you. And in this sense, as I'm coming through, what I'm looking at, all right, you still got the car in position where you want it. So you're still backsiding enough of this cone at the velocity that you're trying to go through.
Yeah.
Could you have been more perfect going through here? Absolutely. Anybody can. if you want to be more accurate with this backside, we had to sacrifice some of the track out towards it. And so that means the
I
car
see.
positioning coming through the gate, you would have had to hug this right hand cone. So to do a perfect run, which we can also review, it's to get over to the right hand side. The right fender of the car needs to be closer to this cone. Why? Because the first slalom cone is actually on my left side. So where right now you can actually see the car angling in a little bit from the start cone, how you're still arcing.
Yeah.
And from there, you're staring. You should have actually, if you were still over by that right cone at the starter gate, where your hands are unwinding right now, it would have been unwound a few feet ago. In turn, the car would have been, your hands would have been in this position at least 10 feet back, giving the car more stability and going through the very first cone. So when you look at some of the top drivers, the way that they're looking at it, they're looking at all those points, because initially it's like, okay, I want to have more speed all the way to that cone, but they're thinking of it not at this cone, but they're thinking of the actual sweeper, is what a lot of those guys are thinking, and what is going to be my best position all the way to there. So if we want to break it down that way, we definitely can. So let's keep an eye on that as we go through, and some things I'm going to be talking about.
That's definitely right, because I remember going into this slalom that I'm not picking up my eyes to look for the sweeper until I'm basically at the end of it. And what you're saying is, right as you're entering, the top guys are already going to be thinking about how they go into that sweeper.
Yes, because they already walked the course. They already know, okay, I got a left, right, left. That's going to already induce a form of flick.
Right.
So one of the things with that, you can't be too aggressive on the exit. And so we'll talk about that in 1 second. So if we come in here and we actually have done our turning, again, as we're leaving out on this right-hand cone, if we were more to the right, it's actually more of a shot. As you can see here, right to the right of the mirror, it's actually more of a straight shot to the back side of the first slalom cone. The position where we are right now, we're making a straight run to, in parallel
to the slalom,
and we don't parallel to the slalom, which now you have to overslow to get to the backside of that slalom. So in the case, if we had better position, moved it over to the right side of this cone, we can drag race it all the way to the first cone, backside that, and actually start a slowdown on that approach if we needed to. So let's play this out real quick. So as we come through, even where you are, we're going to break this up into phases as far as where you are, how you can recover, and how would most likely be the most optimal way to execute this section. So for right now, where you are right now, the way to look at this is, all right, I have my right and then left going into a slalom. So because this is going to cause a flick, regardless of how you set it up, it's going to cause a right-left flick. And then you're going into a higher speed, because by the time you're getting out of here, you're going to be most likely a good velocity. And you want to try and keep that up as you're making this left sweeper. So as we come here, as we're coming around, your eyes are actually doing good. You're actually looking where you're trying to go. But at this moment, this angle is a nice soft angle. So it's about 45 degrees on entry, but it's going to start decreasing as it comes to the apex, and then it widens up a little bit actually. So the way that I'm thinking about
the eyes are actually a little misleading right now. I think I have a decent habit of like moving my eyes, but mentally I was not thinking of the sweeper. It's like you have like your internal eyes and then your external eyes almost, right? It's like what you're mentally being prepared for versus what you're looking at, and hopefully they're the same thing. I think in this case my eyes are looking up, but I can remember when I'm driving through it, I'm not thinking. My thinking wasn't that far ahead, right? And I think that's why the initial slide I also didn't catch very well, because I didn't have a good sense of the space or the shape of the sweeper coming up.
And actually, the wording that you just said is perfect. Is actually the shape. So where your eyes are, you're actually looking where the sweeper essentially starts. Yes, this is the entrance, but you really start the sweeper around at this double. So you're eyeing out where that is, but as you said, the shape of it, the angle that it continues around, that's the hard part. And this is where I even have a lot of trouble with coming around and making sure that I'm spotting out the angle ahead of time. So as far as your positioning, let's take the thought out for a second, just looking at your eye position. As you're coming through here, your eyes are looking in an initial right spot, but really you should be looking in this area. So let's assume that you're looking at the double. The double is what you're looking at as you're exiting the last cone. So as I'm coming through here, I'm trying to eye that double, which is being blocked by the mirror, to try and figure out what the angle is. So I'm actually starting to scan to see where this cone is. That's essentially the apex of my sweeper, because I'm trying to dictate my angle, and then I'm just going to scan. So as I'm going through here, as I'm at this angle here, I already passed this cone because I'm already scanning it, and now I'm looking more towards this area. So I'm always trying to be one step ahead, because right now I'm going to start setting my hands to make this arc and try to cut some distance. So what tends to happen is that you come out of a slalom, and you always taught floor it out of a slalom. Well, the thing that you have to remember is what is up
after
next. Is it what's coming up after the slalom? So in this case, the slalom, can I floor it all the way? Not with the angle that this arc is going to take me. I can't floor it for too long anyway. So let's cover what you did, and then we'll rewind and then see what some of the approaches would have been.
Yeah.
So as we fast forward in here, and you start your slide would have actually been okay if you would have partial throttled.
Yeah, kept some throttle on it.
Just hold a little bit of throttle in it and let the diff actually hold. So as we're coming up, you get an initial jolt in, and with that initial jolt in, it's loading up the front suspension, lightening the rear, and then you lifted, which even exacerbated that momentum shift even more, causing the car to slide. So the way we'll finish up the corner first, and then we'll rewind.
Yeah.
So you come through, no throttle, so that's just going to let the car go in a neutral state. However, your rear end is still light. The diff isn't working right now because you're not telling it to do anything. So the car is just going to be in a neutral state and just slide how you want. So you got good hands. You're eyeing out your exit as far as where you're trying to go. And then you're following through like you normally would. And then at this moment, now you know that you're about to get straight where you need to be. Your eyes are looking towards the next gate, which is good. And now you're starting to roll on the throttle as you felt comfortable where the car was positioned, and you're trying to get the wheel pointed in. So that whole reactionary feel for the entry, mid to almost exit of this sweeper, your reactions were good. Your eyes are going in a good spot. It's just the inputs with your feet and hands were actually what threw you off. So we'll continue through here. And so it just drifts out a little wide as now you're trying to make up time by flooring it.
Yeah.
And actually, because of your angle, you actually didn't need to floor it through this point, because it's kind of a two-part. So now we just got to the apex of that whole sweeper, because this sweeper is really long. So now you're making it essentially a V, or you're making it a two-part slalom. Two-part sweeper. And so now we just hit the apex of that sweeper, and because you did the same motions again, you turned in.
Yeah. And then throttle drops to 0.
Yep. So you went in. Here's the middle part of the sweeper. You floored it, got it in, and then you let go, which is good for drifting, because now you're kind of just it's almost like you clutch kick it, because now the diff, you just got the diff loaded up, and then you just let go.
Right.
So now it's going into a neutral state, and due to the angle that you had, the front end is going to grip in, the rear end is going to come around, and you're just going to do a nice little slide. Same thing, good control. You're trying to look ahead where you're going, which is good. And now that you caught it, you'll notice that your eyes actually got fixated on this cone just for a slight second. So as we come around here,
Yeah, it's like, don't hit that cone, don't hit that cone.
yeah, exactly. And what you should be doing is actually looking through the corner,
Right.
And seeing where you're exiting. But of course, in a slide, you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Now your eyes snap back, but your thought process may be jumbled up in that few milliseconds. So now you're just trying to figure out, okay,
right? Because you're right. Because I just spent half a second there thinking about trying not to hit this cone, and so even afterwards, you pick your eyes up and it's like, oh, where am I again?
Yes, where are you again, and where do I want to go?
Yeah.
See, because everything here chains together. So, okay, where am I going after this is the next thing. I'm still recovering the car, but I got it in a good position right now. Now I'm fully under control. I'm looking through. Got that. But the one thing that threw me off here is that this particular element, and we'll rewind in a second, it goes left, right, but your eyes haven't looked right yet. Because we have to go to this cone to the right side of your mirror. But for some reason, your eyes have still been fixated to the left. So as we're going in, good eyes. And then right here, it's kind of like you're just driving through. You're still fixated on this side over here, which is good and bad. But you still got through there, no problem. So let's rewind at the start of this, at the exit of the slalom,
right,
and kind of recap the whole scenario, but how you could have even recovered and continued on. So as we go through here, we're about to enter the slalom. The sweeper. So as we come through here, you got a good angle, but you're loading up the right side so much. If you were to just partial throttle through here, the car would stay neutral and do whatever you want, as long as your speed doesn't exceed the angle that you're trying to go through this element at. But at this speed at 45, it seems like you should still be fine. You should.
Right.
What would have happened is that you would have added some distance here, kind of where you are, but the car would have been under full control. Just with a partial throttle, cut down from full throttle to about half, because you can't full throttle throughout this element anyway. So you would have half throttle through, and then
so you're saying that between the weight transfer from having the throttle, so we start loading, putting some weight back on the rear, and from the diff getting engaged, right? Because when I'm off throttle, it's completely open. That would, the car would still slide out, but it wouldn't have yawed to such an extreme angle, and you could just keep that momentum going a little longer. So that's what you're saying?
Yes. Because all those things. So as soon as you're partial throttle, the car is in that neutral state. Because we're loading it up, we want the car to be in a neutral state. So if we do anything abrupt, such as lifting, the rear is going to come around. If we do too much hands, the front is already loaded, so it's going to bite and dig in and turn, in this case, to our left, because it's loaded to the right. It's going to turn more to the left because you're loading that tire, you're loading the suspension, the rear is light. It's going to be exacerbated more and cut to the left a lot more aggressive. With partial throttle, and also remembering steady hands as well as throttle, you could have got the car back in a neutral state right here. But because the throttle is going down and you're already starting to counter, it just starts kicking out. Good recovery. And then right here, if you wanted to get back on the gas as you're trying to recover, like right here, I would say back up off of the throttle just a little bit, because now you dance the car so much, you need a time to gather. So people forget about that. Like in the heat of the moment, like Mike Tyson says, you may have a plan, you get punched in the mouth. This was your punch.
Right.
So as you're coming around the corner, you're like, okay, I'm going to execute this. It got sideways. And then as soon as you get sideways, you're trying to keep as much speed as going, but it can cascade. Here, instead of full throttle and then lifting, that's what got you, was that lift. That was that full throttle to lift. So although I don't have a camera right now to kind of show my hands, as you came in with full throttle, you have to think of it this way. Full throttle in this sense of the car is putting the weight to the back.
Okay.
So you now have the weight to the back side of the car. You now have, essentially, you're making the car squat and getting some good traction.
Yeah.
Because you had the car neutral for a second, that you felt comfortable enough. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and be able to floor it. You actually had a second there where the car is neutral, even though you're full throttle. Because the car kind of squatted, you're good to go. But what happens is that because we still have another, like, let's just say 40-degree angle that we have to go, you're almost pretty much flooring it right now. And you're starting to put in some input. When you start doing this, the right corner is going to get loaded. The diff is going to want to do something because you're full throttle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to try and help you turn the car. And what I would do in this instance is bring my throttle back down to about 50% because I know I'm just recovering right now. So bring it back down to 50%. My hands are good. The car would have gotten to a neutral state. But what happened next was the throttle dropped. Because I know it fuzzes up right now. But with that throttle drop, you then said, all right, that steering angle, I'm now going to load all my weight to the front, means I'm going to lighten the rear of the car and then cause a drift. So that's one of the things you have to remember. Any abrupt movement, the way that the car was set up, is going to throw the car off.
So just to make sure I'm kind of getting what you're saying. So after that initial slide, in the recovery phase of that, you're saying, I went back to full throttle, just trying to make up time, right? Which is an accurate, that's exactly what happened in my head. I just slid, I lost some time, let me try to get back up to speed. And you're saying that instead of going to full throttle, if I went to 50 or 75%, then I wouldn't have had to, make such an abrupt set of inputs for the second half of that sweeper.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because
and
you would have been in better control.
And then on top of that, I think you had the much better point of it would give my brain a little more time to recover as well. Because I wouldn't have had to have this big lift. I wouldn't have to go full throttle. There's a little less to do. And I can mentally kind of finish gathering myself from the last slide, which I think is like a really good observation, because then when I rushed for it and I triggered the second slide, you notice right away that through the next set of transitions, my brain was kind of elsewhere. My eyes weren't going where they were supposed to go. Okay. Yeah, so it's like the first mistake just kept compounding, and I didn't give myself the chance to fully recover from that mentally.
Because also you got to realize what's coming up next. That was just the first half. There's still another half left of the corner. And so during this period, so I rewinded just a little bit. This is just before you recover. And let's just see where you have to go. You still have to continue that bend over here to the left of your visor. And although you showed this cone here, there's actually the cone that you need to be on is being blocked by your visor right now.
Yeah.
You have to now recover, continue that bend, which you can actually continue an arc and backside that cone to set up the little chicane, we can call it, that's coming up after the sweeper. So our whole notion, anytime we have a mishap, we're just like, crap, I got to make up some time. That's where you floored it. And what happened is that after you floored it, you looked up and saw where you have to be. That's what made you lift again.
Lift, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh shit, I'm going too fast now.
Exactly. You were like, oh crap, my car's trajectory is pointing me at best here.
Yeah.
I know I have to make it there. I know if I lift, I can make the front bite in. However, at this speed and how the car is set up, we loaded up the car so much you can actually see it in the video. So as soon as we lift, it's just going to continue momentum. It's just going to wrap all the way around. So one of the ways that now that we can actually see the course again, the course goes, we have this gate, and then we have a little like a chicane. So it's a left to right to left, and then we exit out through here. So we're trying to actually get the car positioned in this, just to the left of this cone here, so that way we can soften up this little chicane. So if I go back just a little bit where you just recovered, we have to have our eyes over here, which you have a good glance. So we have to keep going. And then this was a cone. Like now, after all that, you did get in the position that you wanted to kind of be in, but you lost all that time due to the slides that were happening in that arc, in that whole corner.
Yeah.
So one of the things just to realize with all these corners is just partial throttle. I always tell a lot of people, partial throttle, build your speed up as the day goes on. But what happens is anytime you get flustered with a slide or a massive slide in recovery, one, chances are you didn't keep the same time around that element. So almost use it as a learning time. Like, oh crap, okay, this is already going to be slower. Let me try and maximize as much as I can in other spots. But continuing to do it in the same sweeper is just going to jeopardize your time. So, and that's where it's tough for a lot of people is, hey, I messed up. What do I do next? Let's try and make up some time and go bonsai at everything.
Yeah.
And you still end up going slower in some cases. So, but let's move forward off that, unless you have any questions about that particular sweeper.
No, I think that's a pretty good. That really helps me kind of understand what happened there, right? Like it really started like at the first corner, right? Of like even before we go into that slalom, we should be thinking about the sweeper and how the slalom goes into the sweeper. Because I didn't have that in mind, then as I approached the end of the slalom, I was starting to be pretty violent with the car, not preparing for the entry of the slalom or the sweeper. That got the car really loose in the entry. You know, as I catch that, I'm thinking, oh crap, I need to make up time. And I go wide open. That induces the Nix problem where I have to lift, car goes sideways again. You know, it's just this huge compounding thing just from not, you know, mentally being prepared for that entire sequence, right? It's like, it's not one element, it's like three of them all together. And if you're not thinking of it, you know, that first mistake, I might be paying for it 2 elements down.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole game with autocrossing is that everything chains together short of a massive slowdown area. So for me, from the start of this all the way to that chicane is basically my first element, or the entry of that chicane, because the exit of the chicane can also bite you for the next element, which we're about to get into. So let's just call it not element, but a sector. So sector 1. Got it. So a sector 1 to me is starting off from the beginning, actually before the lights trip, and actually making that initial right-hander. So as we're making this right-hander, that's the start of my sector. So I'm not even worried about too much of my speed going up to this cone, because to me, this is where it actually starts. Yes, you have your lights afterwards, but if I overdrive this first turn, and I'm out of position and I'm drifting over to the left too much, or I can't feel as though I can backside that slalom good enough to set up for the sweeper, I'm screwed. Everything just cascades and it just gets worse and slower. So right here, I would come in, try to get closer to this right, finish out my turn, like how you were unwinding just a little bit. I would have tried to go over more to the right. Get that would have lined me up great for this slalom, being more control as I'm exiting out of here. A little bit more partial throttle, and then push out. So how we're pointed towards here, towards the inside left. Stay more of a midline. Why? Because it's a decreasing radius at the apex. So I want to have a little bit of distance here, mid distance, so that way I can carry as much speed and get to that apex. So as we come around here, if we were to take a mid corner, which right now you are just slightly off to the right. Granted, you're sliding, but where I would want to be under control is where you are. But I will continue through mid gate, and then as I'm coming out mid gate from the last element here, I'm actually now going to be trying to backside this cone. Because if I was to backside this cone, I can then also fit through here as well. Because if I backside the cone through there, I would and be on full throttle, I would have been able to get through this gate no problem and line up for this cone coming up, kind of where you are right now. So all that would have just tied into together, but you have to have an idea of, okay, some areas I may add a little bit of speed here, and adding that distance correlates with it. If it doesn't correlate with having a good average, then don't add distance. Like, the whole point of that sector is average and speed, average distance and speed. That's all it is. So as I'm coming, if I'm going to add some distance, it's got to put me in a position that I can get on the throttle. And that's where I was saying at entry, I'm at entry to the whole sweeper. I was taking the midline. Because since it's decreasing radius here, if I'm too tight cutting distance, that means right here before the apex, I have to slow down the car.
Yeah.
I rather slow it down and do something abruptly. So if I add a little bit of distance and track it all the way through, then my average of speed is good and I'm in control. That means if I'm in control at the exit, I can actually get on the throttle earlier or start rolling on the throttle earlier.
Right.
So as we approach through here, this isn't bad at all. It's just I'm just calling it a chicane. Now, one of the things with this one that I remember trying to do is actually tracking out a little bit, carrying out some speed, which isn't looking back at it, wasn't the best way. I think the way that you're approaching this, as far as going over to your left, is better. So here, not much to say or do. You're coming in with a good angle. We don't want to go over to the left too much, because now we're just adding too much distance or slowing down the car to go over to the left. So you did a good job through this element. So just rewinding it just a little bit. So some people may think, oh, I got to go out to the white line and then backside this and stuff. You don't really need to do all that. The way that you're going is good because there's a pincher cone over here. So I can't maximize my speed on this exit. I see. Might as well worry about my average. If there was not a pincher cone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That was what I was about to ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if there was not a pincher cone there, I would add some distance here to actually track out and keep more of a higher speed on this right arc.
Right.
But because there is a pincher there, I know I cannot, from here to there, I have to slow down because it's pinching me to the right. For those watching, let's go through it real quick. So as we come through on the right, good arc through. If this wasn't here, I could have carried some speed all the way out into the right-hander. But because this is a pincher, it's keeping me honest, because the next element you can potentially go too far off course. It's keeping you honest to keep your speeds down. Right. So right here, I have to keep my speed marginal to get through this element under control. So let's rewind that real quick.
So what you're saying is, because we're going to get limited on our exit speed out of here, there is not a payoff to, because like if we go further out to the right or to the left, what we're buying ourselves is a much wider corner that we can carry more speed through. But
More
it
speed
doesn't,
and being on the throttle earlier.
and being on the throttle earlier. But if we're gonna get immediately slowed down afterwards, then we're not actually taking any of that payoff, and we're adding more distance in the beginning of it.
Correct. So all that, and I'm actually going to add in even a more wrinkle here, where I'm going to rewind just a little bit on the entry.
Okay.
So as you were going through that left right, let's go back a little bit further. So as we were going through this is the mid left, and then this is the right hander coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
If I wanted to track out more to the left here, I would have to work much harder to get the car over.
Right.
And then what you have to think about some of the payoffs. Everything about the sport is angles. It's basically geometry and physics. So as you come through here, some people say, oh, if I come over to my left here and then maximize this right hander and then track all the way around, yeah, that would sound great if there wasn't a pincher. But because here, if I were to track out here, can this soften up my angle to exit out on this right hander? Sure. But it also, I don't get that much payoff. Why? Because this turn becomes a pain in the butt. It's falling off, which everybody experienced, so you're going to understeer here. And if you were to try and add distance, you're actually going to carry more speed because you're adding some distance. And as you're turning, this corner is already painful at this speed, much less if you try to go faster. So now you're going to abruptly slow down in the middle here because you're understeering. So there is no reason here, from what I tried anyway, to add too much distance to the left side. It just wasn't.
Right.
But
yeah, I
did a good job.
I didn't think of the complexity of it, that like not only does this corner itself have the trade-offs, but if you were trying to widen it, you're actually making the previous element harder as well. So there's this, like, you know, just like you were saying before in the last sector, there's these elements that connect to each other. We can't even think of them. Oh, this is complicated.
yeah. So it's crazy how much everything chains together. So as we come through here, you can carry some good speed, and you're just kind of tippy-toeing through here, which you did a good job. And then from right now, let's see if we can tell where your eyes are. Your head is at least turned to try and spot out where you got to go, which is good. And you're doing it so ahead of time, which is great. So now you can be able to identify where your gap is, which is just past this A-pillar. There is your first slalom cone. And so now you can actually predict your angle that you want to go through. So you did a double pump there, just because it's a little dry, and at the speed, those rivals start to grip pretty well, especially since it's just a 40. It's supposed to be a 90, but the car is going to grip right there. And then as you're starting to track out, I'm going to start looking at your throttle. So let's rewind that for a second. So that little blip that you kind of had, I would say just focus on smoothing that out. So right here, I understand that the blip is going to come because of the pump. So we're going to play and actually, all right, wormhole, where is the controls to slow this down? Toggle. You remember where the controls are to playback controls?
No, I had to spend like 20 minutes setting up hotkeys, so I don't know where the buttons are anymore.
I gotcha. So slow. Do. See if this helps. A little bit more. So yeah, definitely next time I'll have to do some hotkeys, because at 50 it's actually really good.
Yeah.
I'll keep it at 75, at 70 for right now. So as we're coming through here, let's just pay attention to your throttle inputs, and then lift, which is fine. and then this is where I would start getting back on the throttle. You hesitated just for a hair, but you're good to go. So you did a good job going through there. You just had a little hiccup because the car bit in a lot more than you anticipated. Your angle is good because you're backsiding off the top already. This cone, and it is a straight slalom. So let's see if you continue through. Good. A little behind there, but it's fine. Why? Because what's our next element isn't a continuous slalom to the left. It's a high speed to the right. So this is where some people also forget. This isn't a steady slalom like a 6 or 7 cone slalom, which you have to continuously dance. However, you still do a good job on your entry. So you're backsiding here, and then we're worried about backsiding the next cone. Also, I'm looking at your throttle or trying to hear your throttle if you don't have data to see if you're full throttle. Since I've been in the car, I already know that, hey, you can go through this at almost full throttle, like through the first 2 cones.
Yeah.
And then right here, what I notice is that you drop throttle from going to 100%. And it'll be curious. I didn't look at mine, but it'll be curious to see how much throttle I actually drop off. I'm going to assume I only dropped off like 50%. So as you're going through here, just quick hands. Like as soon as you're in here, trust the car and start moving your hands. So you got it there, but you almost didn't trust the car enough, and you're lifting, but you're still in control, so it doesn't hurt. And now, what we're trying to do is gather you enough that the slalom is going to start going straight into this gap, and I guess it's fuzzing up because it's on low. But right here, we should be full throttle because you're exiting. So,
what you're saying before with the quick hands, are you saying that if I moved my hands faster for like the second half of the slalom, then I could have stayed or had more throttle through it? So like I lifted to control the speed, but you're telling me that I could adjust the car to take the faster inputs.
Yes, the way that I felt and how I can recall when doing it, and when we go to my video, it actually makes some sense as well. So the way that I'm thinking about it is that as you approached here, you had good speed, only at 40, and we have to accelerate because the pacing of this is pretty long. It was a pretty quick slalom. Your positioning is good, but it seems as though your trust from back here is still wavering.
Yeah.
See, and that's where this happens to a lot of us, where what happened in the beginning of the course will actually affect your confidence.
Yeah.
So now, as we're attacking this, you're going to feel the car getting a little light, and light enough that you're like, I'm not going to do that again. So I'm going to take it easy. And that's because of remembering, hey, what happened in this sweeper, I don't want that happening again, so I'll play caution to it. And in this case, you just drop down the throttle. The car is still in control. You still have good hands. The car never looked upset. However,
but that tells us we could have
gone faster.
Yeah.
And so the next part is, okay, where's the car positioned versus where do I have to go? Now, it looks like your hand is positioned. I know it's a little grainy right now, but your hand is positioned in a way that you can get to this next element, this wallish gate that's coming up. But the thing is, I'm going to stare and try to listen to where is your throttle. Because at this moment, this run is over 75 feet, close to 100 before even entry. So why are you not on throttle?
I'm scared.
Yeah, exactly. And that all happened because of what happened earlier. So that's where I always try to tell a lot of people, and I always have to remind myself, I'm good at being in my own head and trying to back out, but we all have our falters. And what happens is that people try to go too hard, too early, and they forget that it affects your confidence on the second half. So the first half of a course, typically, is not fast. A lot of times the first half of the course is kind of just to get you going. So a lot of transitions and may have one quick corner, but for the most part, you can warm yourself up. So don't blow it on the first run and go in there and throw yourself off, which I do quite often. But then I have to tell myself,
it's really interesting. You're saying this like even inside a single run, that you're trying to use the first part of it to build confidence, right? Because if you wreck your confidence early, then it's not even that you messed up that portion. And yeah, you lose the time and whatever, but you're saying you can see from like how I'm driving, you know, we're like 15, 20 seconds afterwards, you can still see the effect of it. That's interesting. I've never heard that before, right? Using kind of the early part of the course to build your mental confidence so that you can execute what you need to execute later.
Yeah. Because in a way, you know, we have three to four runs typically going through. Your first run, I had a short story, is that we're actually at Spring Nationals. My first time ever going to Spring Nationals. And Jensen, was it Jensen? He's an S2000 CR.
Okay.
And he's a fast guy, but he's a single driver on Rivals. So he goes out on day one, flinging it, on this first run. And then after that, he never got faster. And I'm watching him on course because he's ahead enough of me that I can actually see this action going on. And I know he's fast. It's like, all right, what's he doing? Oh, I see what's going on. The car is cold. He's trying to go 10-10s on cold Rivals. And the car isn't doing what he wants. So now on run 2, he backed off to what I'll call 90%.
Yeah.
So his lines were better, but he was just slower and timid on his throttle positioning everywhere. Okay?
Right.
So he comes back in, and you only have 3 runs at national events, so he goes back out on his third run and stays at that 90%. His positioning may have been better because he learned from it, but he still wavered from the car. The car's balance is what threw him off. So I went to him, as I always try to help folks out, good or bad. I went to him, I said, look, he looked a little down, like, why is everyone getting me? And normally I'm right there. I'm like, look, I'm watching you. You're a single driver on Rivals. Go 7/10 tomorrow on run 1. He was like, why? Warm up the car and get confidence back. Huh? Okay, all right. So the next day, went up right up to him before his run. Go 7/10.
Yeah.
He looked at me, nodded his head. All right. Go 7/10. Learn the course. Warm up the car. All right. He comes back. Good. Kind of disappointed in a way, but he listened. He went 7/10. What happens on his second run? I walked up to him, felt his tires. Car is warm. Go after it. Huh? It's good, man. You're good. Went after it, dropped so much time, obviously, and was back in the pack.
Nice.
And then he came back, got faster off course on his third run. And people forget, this whole thing is mental. Like, after a while, the part where people even say, hey, Shane, how comes you never won? Dude, I somewhat get in my head too much at these events. And you can lose confidence. Even in one turn, you lose enough confidence, your run is done.
Yeah. And you know what's really fascinating about this is I remember these runs. I didn't feel like I was not confident, right? Consciously, I'm still thinking about attacking and thinking about Shane's got his camera on me. I gotta look at. You know? If nothing else, I need to not look like a wimp, right? I'm okay overdriving. I'm okay spinning. I just don't want to look at. But now that we're playing it back on video and we can see the data and we can slow it down. You can see almost subconsciously, right? There's these little areas where, I'm slow going on the throttle, or I back off a little bit, and it's like you don't even notice it consciously, what that little bit of disruption kind of affects you. And I'm sure that's almost what you're describing in this story, that he's not thinking that he's driving timid, right? But because you get to be outside and see him, you can kind of pick up these little nuances.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that I also try to pick up from Sam, Sam Strano, which has been a great mentor over the years that I've been doing this, and just listening and watching him and how he can pick up what somebody's doing just by comparing their runs visually versus other folks' runs, and I've seen him freaking say, "Damn, she lost," like watching Shelly or John V at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, she just lost point 3. I looked at how the and she comes in point 3 slower.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, get the hell out of here. How did you? So I actually tried to watch folks and see by sectors if they got faster or not. It's kind of a challenge, but seeing and noticing what they do or what they don't do in there, it's very curious to do, and sometimes I'm off dramatically, but man, for him to spot that of folks that he knows and knows how they drive, it was pretty cool actually.
That's
and
cool.
If you're around a lot of top drivers, they tend to do that a lot. The experienced folks, guys or girls, I'm just amazed. But it's mainly experience. All right, so I know I rambled on a little bit about that, but we can get back to here, kind of rewind a little bit and recap what we're talking about. So we're hitting the slalom. Your position is good. What I'm looking at here is really how your throttle is. So here, exiting a slalom, especially when you know it opens, this second to last cone, this is actually on exit where you are right now is actually where you want to be on throttle. Why? Because exiting out of here, you know it's pretty much just a steady arc going into this gate. So you should have been on the throttle way back. So, all right, Shane, well, on entry then, should I be attacking this hard? Well, in this case, yes. Because your entry speed, because of the right-hander, is so low, you have to be full throttle. What then happens is that by pacing, and this is what I always try to, a little key that helped me when I had driving over the years. I pace every slalom cone when I'm serious. I started getting it into visual, but I pace it to know, hey, what's the mile per hour in my head that I know I can go through a full throttle with quick hands. With Ruby, the STR Miata, I can go through a 32 pace, my paces, full throttle as long as I'm fast hands.
Right.
If I'm not fast hands, I can only do 30. And that was something I learned from Julian Garfield with the fast hands, because he has some stupid hands.
Yeah.
That I had to watch him, and I was like, he was like, yeah, just move your hands faster. I was like, what? Yeah, just pin the gas down and move your hands really fast.
So wait.
I went
So
out on the next
what you
run
did,
and it worked.
So what you did, and I presume this took a while, right? You just every time there was a slalom. Well, no, I mean. Yeah.
For the pacing. Oh yeah. That takes a few.
So just like every event, you would find the slalom. You would make a note of the paces. So you'd actually like walk the course and count how many steps it would take to get from one cone to the other, and then when you're driving, you would see, well, what's the kind of control speed of that, and then you just make a note of that.
Yep.
And I guess over time, you kind of build yourself a little database of, well, at this pacing, I can go 42 miles an hour flat-footed through and just move my hands faster.
Yeah, and we'll see what I do on my runs. But you're in control right now. At 44, you're in control.
Yeah, car's not doing
it. The car's not doing anything. Like, you just got tempered right here. Now we're up to 50. Okay, and that's when if you were to move your hands faster between these two cones, because you got to remember, you're picking up speed. So, same thing I always tell a lot of my students. As you're picking up speed, your hands need to move faster. So you can't go through here any faster if you're not picking up your hands and moving them quicker. So, because you're going to end up late. because you are increasing your speed through that element. You have to now increase the speed in your hand movement. So right here, 44, we're good. 45, we're good. You should already moved your hands. Like, that should already been starting to snap back, because the car is going to slide as you're increasing your speed. You're passing 100% of an adhesion, the car is going to yaw slightly. And you're still fine. This is where you were worried, and you should have continued tracking out. Even if you're close to this cone, it doesn't matter. You just have to pass it in this instance. And you already did that. So just continue passing it. You had a good angle coming into this wall / gate. So all the way back here, from the middle of the slalom, shortcut that thing. Get on it. Get on it. Even if it's not 100%, you should be on it more than 50.
Yeah.
And definitely by time you're leaving here, you should be 100 and holding it as 100. Like right here, yeah. I'm always thinking, yeah. Even if I slow myself down in the first two of this, even if I had slowed down, I wanted to tell myself it's the exit that matters. That was something that Peters told me to focus on. It's the exit, Shane, not as much the entry. It's the how you exit and where you're going next. You can always change your entry as far as your angles and so forth. But your exit, if you're too shallow, you're too slow, the next element is what is going to get that hit. So, all right. So as we move on here, full throttle all the way through. Steady hands as we try to fit through here because it's a slight kink. And then here is where, yes, we do have to slow down because this flattens out. So there's not much that you can do, quite honestly. This one you kind of have to, what a lot of people try to do is get over to the left to soften up this right. Mm-hmm. So how you got the right hand, this is the pointer there that you're trying to get this straight line from here to here. Is just a straight line because he's pinching you due to the exit. So what some of us started trying to do is actually position the car not close to this right cone, but close to this left cone as much as possible to soften my arc from here to exit there.
Right.
Where we are right now, you have to slow down. If you look at my mouse has to make an abrupt movement. If my car was positioned over here, you can actually it's a lot softer.
Right.
As far as the angle. However, what they did in the afternoon, they actually added a pincher cone to force you to do what you're doing right now. So you inevitably have to slow down. So this is normal. You just kind of fit through there, and nothing to really cover there. On this part, I'm just going to watch your throttle, a little lift. A little too much lift. That's why the car is actually dancing. I would have stayed at least 50% because it's pretty open right-hander. So let's pause here for a second. So the right-hander is actually nice and soft going all the way through, and the entry is a slalom. So the one thing that I'm thinking about here is what was going through my head is it banked? Yes. Is it banked in a good way? Yes. All right. What does the bank mean? On my car setup, in this case yours, your car is pretty soft. I cannot do anything silly in here when it comes to weight transfer because the outside, being my left, is going to get loaded just naturally more. Not only am I turning right, but the car is going to be loaded that way. So if I go on-off throttle too abruptly, it's going to want to spin more. So
right.
That's where I'm worried about my throttle position. Can I floor it? Let's try it. See what happens. If it gets suspect, then I know the next time just go 90, 80, whatever the case may be. Drop it down to the area where I'm on the edge, but I can still go through here at optimal speed.
Right. That's a really good point. I wasn't thinking about the banking. Right, and that as we turn into it, the left side of the car is getting kind of pressed into the bank, right? And so it's that left front tire that's turning right that's going to get suddenly a lot of weight transfer to it if I come off the throttle, like more than usual on flat ground.
And so right here, you got good steady hands. You're turning in, but oh, it bit in.
Yeah.
Right at that point, there's a bump and you're banked. So you got good hands. You have a nice angle that you would have been able to use your yaw. Right here, good angle. You would able to. You're already predicting. Okay, I would get some yaw, clear this cone, and I would fit through this gap. Perfect, right where my hands are. But where's your throttle? Your throttle dipped. So what's going to happen? I'm loaded on my left side. I'm turning, and I lift. The car is going to bite in like nobody's business. And it bit in just enough, and you're like, oh, let me lift. And that also can go back to the the first sweeper in the video.
Yeah.
Where it's the same thing. It's just a form of habits. So you recovered well, but now you're trying to climb up on the throttle. And now you're going through here pretty good. You have some good speed, slow it down. But this is where it becomes fast hands. I'm just going to call it what Garfield told me.
Yeah.
The young Garfield. Move your hands. At this speed, and for this element, you slowed down, you're shortcutting the slalom, and you're getting back on it. Why on earth did you breathe on the throttle? You know, it just becomes just move your hands faster. Come through here. Boom. Good. 40. Just stay on it. Stay on it.
Okay, so it's that second one. So we can see if we're looking at the throttle trace, right? There's it drops to 0 entering it, and then it slowly starts climbing. And what you're saying is right there, it kind of pauses for a second. And you're saying what I could have done.
50.
Oh yeah.
Just,
what I could have done was
hands.
just keep going on the throttle and just move my hands faster to keep up with it.
Right. And the misconception is when I say get on the throttle, it doesn't mean always
Snap
100%.
it, right.
It really just means just keep a little bit more throttle discipline on there. A lot of times, believe it or not, I actually drive a lot of my drives at 75%. Like, people don't believe me. It's like, yes, I seldomly, and it's bad unless I get serious, I don't always floor it, depending on the car that I'm in. We'll see the maybe I'm a liar, but to me,
Right.
To me, a partial throttle, when I'm looking at data, may even be just right here, this 10-15%. But in my feel as I'm driving, sometimes it feels as though I'm only driving at 75, because I'm more worried about the car's balance and being able to get in position. I actually don't want to slide the car around too much because it overheats the tires, is my thought.
Right.
But again, it's certain situations that happens. So as we go through here, you were okay. You were a little late, but you still had enough that you could have fit through no problem, still be in position. Why? Because as we're exiting here, I'm going to try and catch it. So right, this exit, look how much room you have to recover from the car front line to your next element, which is only 20 degrees off center. You have over 100 feet or about 100 feet to recover. So it wasn't really even a slalom per se. It was more of a speed check, lane change. Is what I tell myself. So as you're coming through here, it's just slowing down the car enough, or you could even call it a baby slalom, and then you should be on the throttle all the time. Look how much distance you have before you have to slow down. And then some people were going over to the far left and trying to slow down. If you're going to go over to the far left, you have to slow down at an angle or trail braking, because if not, you just added some distance. Yeah, the whole notion that yourself and others are going over to the left is that you're trying to soften up this angle. But you'll notice right here, look how long you're waiting until you got on the throttle. You didn't get on the throttle until you basically tripped the lights.
Yeah.
So
So
this
there wasn't
is
a
where,
big payoff for doing it.
no, not at all. Because you're kind of just coasting around here. Like, look at your miles per hour, 38. You're coasting a little bit. And even here, I was actually shocked, even though you countered, you never got on the gas. Like, you're still off the gas, partial on the gas, but you really didn't get on it until afterwards. So my notation for you was going to be, when you get here, help the car with your right foot. Even a little bit, 25%, would help it rotate around. So even though right here it's sliding because the car is neutral, and because of the speed you're going at that steering angle that you were entering it, it's just sliding. That's all. Because the car is nice and balanced. But you could have helped it rotate with partial throttle, and then you still would have had a counter because of the speed that you're going. But it would have helped you turn at that cone initially. So like right here.
So right here, you're saying I should be applying some throttle.
A little throttle. At worst case, right here. As soon as you're about to nip the cone, at least start touching it a little bit to help the diff turn the car. You're still going to end up countering, but now because you would have turned the car essentially tighter on that cone, your car would have most likely drifted out just a little, but not as much as you have right here. And even if you did, you would still have gotten more stability because you're on throttle.
Right,
right,
and
just enough.
And what you've been saying before is when you have like a torsion type diff, if you're on throttle a little bit, that causes some lockup, that helps stabilize the car. That's what you're saying in this case too.
Yes. And so what I always told folks, I'm not a big Mustang driver, but I don't take all the credit like I come up with this stuff. So the credit I'll give is Big Mike Snyder.
Yeah.
That always told me, hey, to dance these big ponies, talking about the Mustangs and muscle cars, get on the throttle. Get on the throttle. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're using the front end too much. In this case, you're using the front end too much. No. Touch that throttle. You don't got to floor it, but you got to touch it. I say, huh? He's like, go ahead. Let's go at it again. So we went, this was at a TNT. Got in. Boom. He's like, now. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, now you're starting to get it. I was like, well, you can't see my expressions right now, but
yeah.
What's going on is that I'm actually, every element, brakes, turn, roll, brakes. So my foot is stabbing on the brakes.
Yeah.
Then turn in the car so the front end is nice and loaded, and then immediately transition while I'm turning to my foot from brakes to gas.
Right.
And just roll on it. Just touch it. Don't floor it, depending on your speed and your angle, but you gotta touch the gas. That will help rotate the car.
What happens? So I'm trying to think of how it feels. Like, what happens when you do too much?
Too much gas, you spin. So you it becomes a power slide.
Okay, so you are using the rear axle yawing a little bit to turn the car.
On entry.
And that's the effect you're trying to create. Okay. Does it ever risk transferring too much weight off the nose so that the front end starts pushing?
Is there a risk? You just understeer.
Okay.
And so that means you have to. So let's just go back to your video in that sense. So here, it's just going to kind of push out. Now you're countering because the rear is coming around, but at this moment, what you're losing is acceleration.
Right, because the finish lights are right there. This is the time that I really want to accelerate. Okay, so you're saying that the balance you're trying to find with that little bit of like almost entry throttle is you want enough to bring the diff into play so that under power is rotating the car. You don't want too much so that it transfers a ton of weight off the nose all at once and you start pushing. And then you definitely don't want so much that you go into this big power slide.
Right. So let me see if I can break this down real quick in the good old classic paint.
Oh boy.
So let me see if I have a big enough. I haven't used this thing in so long. So let's just say we have our corner here, right? We have this guy here. Let's make it orange. So we have our cone here. We have our outer cone here. And we have our inner cone here. All right. So I'll make the line red. So as I'm coming, actually, what I'll do is make it purple on entry. So as I'm coming in, I'm on. Nope. I'm gonna make that red because that's brakes. So as I'm coming in, I'm on the brakes. Boom, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. At I trail brake a lot, and I tell people you just got to work on it. I trail brake everything, damn near. It's a bad habit as well, but I do trail brake. So I'm just gonna kind of speak from some of my experiences. So I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna do a nice little trail brake in, and then right around this moment, I'm gonna put it as blue. I'm gonna start steering already my angle, and I'm trying to do one of these. Okay, probably not that perfect of an arc, but I'm trying to do one of these to try and get through.
Mm-hmm.
At this point where I'm turning, I'm gonna try and roll a little bit here on the gas.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my reaction time, it's really gonna be, you can see that I'm intentionally having a space in between here.
Mm-hmm.
Due to my reaction time, it's really gonna start here. So I'm going to try and be on the throttle as I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
What then happens is, although I'm tipping in on the throttle at this juncture, I'm never flooring it until here.
Right.
And I'm not really flooring it. I'm just passing 75% because at this angle, I probably, at the way that the video is, I couldn't really floor it all the way. It's just a partial throttle. But I'm already tipping in here. So brakes, turn in, get my angle. As soon as I start the turn on angle, a little delay just because of reaction from brakes to gas. And I start touching the gas to start continuing and making my turn. Because if I end up trying to do the same, let's just say, for example, I'm doing the same element, right? I'm coming in, I'm braking. If I then just start setting my hands and coasting around, the car is just going to go at its speed where you stopped. So in your case, it was like 30. And then it's just going to scrub as I'm turning and slow down. If I try to accelerate this late, right here, even touching the gas on a Torsen car, that means I'm using all this time where I'm under the vice of a neutral car. Like a fully neutral car. So yes, is it going to turn? Yeah, but can it turn better with throttle? Yes. And this is something that anybody and everybody can actually play out on the street. So I don't condone like you trying to drift and everything on the street. However, if you take a step back, when did that drift start? A lot of time you're starting to do it as soon as you hit the throttle. So on your regular spirited road, go through the corner. Like, let's start a new one here. Actually, let me just start another one because I can always reference this guy again. So, boop, boop. So let's just say we have our regular S road, right?
Okay.
Your favorite canyon. I just want people to do this one thing. Just come in and you're just gonna drive it. Hey, it's a nice good speed. Drive it, coasting. No throttle. Just get enough speed on entry and just let the car track. Preferably downhill so you can kind of feel things. Alright? So just let it go. Then, what I want you to do it again. Get a nice neutral base for what the hell we're trying to figure out here.
Yeah.
Come back around, and then I want you to do a partial throttle. Right here. Just before the apex. And then throttle out. Obviously now you're going to get from here to here faster, so we're going to have to use some brakes. But in this particular first one, let's not use too much throttle so we don't have to use too much brakes here.
Right.
So we're just going to get on the gas, and what I just want you to do is just start rolling on the gas while you're turning. It's your favorite roads. You already went through it. You already know the conditions. Just touch the gas. See how the body of the car works. Go at first, say 20%. Do the same thing here. 20%. Same thing here. 20%. Then go back. Do it a little bit more. And you'll actually feel the attitude of the rear end of the car step out just a little bit more, or the front end of the car bite in more by the time you're here. Because what I've noticed with the RX8 is pretty much a big Miata, or really is the Miata a small RX8, just more reliable. But the dynamics are very similar, with the exception of the wheelbase.
Yeah.
So the Miata is just a little bit more snappier, and that's why a lot of people like the RX8, because of the longer wheelbase you included. But yeah, just try that out, and you'll actually notice, hey, if I come in here and I start getting on the gas, the car is going to help turn. Now, as you start feeling more and more comfortable, notice that this element looks very similar to what was on the video.
Yeah.
And what we were explaining before. So now let's pick up our speed. Obviously, be very cautious of your speeds out there, but even going at safe speeds, you can still feel it if you pay attention. So if you come in here and you brake, come in entry a little bit faster, brake, and then neutral all the way around, then come back, brake, and then get on the gas, you'll feel the difference. And that's how you're simulating what you will experience in autocrossing. Everybody has their favorite roads. Can you go as fast as autocrossing, maybe, or as wild as autocrossing? No, because oncoming traffic and so forth. But you can still practice the little things while on the street and on your favorite on ramp, off ramp. Especially, I used to have a particular right-hander that's very similar to this, but it's actually a Yui, so it actually does this. And I used to always practice as far as trail braking in, all the way deep, seeing how far I can actually trail brake in, and then the car will snap out, and then immediately go to transition to gas it out. Like, I try to minimize this gap as much as possible,
right.
and see how the car feels, and see how comfortable I can get with it. So.
Right, so you're not like driving at the limit, but you're still kind of working out the mechanics of it, working out, what your hands and feet are doing, what it feels like when the body, moves around a little bit. Maybe you can even feel the locking behavior on the diff.
To a certain degree, there was one of the ones that I used to actually do a lot, and I may be running out of a little bit of space here, but what I used to actually do is there's a roundabout.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the roundabout that I used to always go to, and this is when I was driving with Justin, and I was like, yeah, I got a little roundabout that I test the suspension on. He was like, how the hell? What are you talking about? I was like, well, there's two of them. And what happens is that there's a roundabout here, then the road kind of does this, and then there's another roundabout. What's that? It's almost like I can just continue making my lefts, and because of this, I have a little bit of right turn, right to load in, and then this fell off. But either way, you find your favorite roads, and I found out that this, I can dial in how I wanted the suspension, how I wanted the car to feel. And because it was a roundabout, it was around autocross speeds. So it actually made it fun. And so I would go out, make some tweaks, go back out. No, the sway bar needs to be stiffened up. I don't like it. And by the time I got to this roundabout anyway, my tires were warm. So I can do all that and play around. And because this was a military base over here, the traffic was not high.
Right.
Especially on a Saturday. So you had places to play. And everybody has that certain road that they like to play on. And where I'm getting at with all this is really just getting the feel and comfortability as far as brakes, trail braking, if that's your driving style. I know a lot of people that do not trail brake, so it's not something that you have to do. It's just something that I've learned from all-wheel drive cars.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest thing that I still have to learn is that tip in. Like, I consciously tell myself, get on the gas, get on the gas, as soon as I come through an element like this. So right here, I'm literally telling myself, touch the gas, touch the gas, touch the gas, touch the gas. And I'm literally saying it in my head. Like, it's not subconscious enough for me at the moment.
Right.
On certain elements, I'll realize you didn't touch the gas. That means you understeered over here to the left when touching the gas would have rotated the car. Think of that muscle car swing that Strano and those guys used to always do, and use that to your advantage. With the low torque, it won't swing per se, but it's also, it won't swing enough to hurt you because you can actually floor it. The muscle cars, you kind of just touch it because it has so much torque. In your car, you can actually start getting on the gas.
Right, start using that outside left wheel.
Mm-hmm. And start loading it up. So that's your video. Any questions that you may have or anything you want me kind of highlight a little bit more on?
God, so many. We've been going for an hour and a half.
So what I'll do then is that I'll close it up with my video, and I actually haven't even really watched it, so I'll see.
Kind of live.
And doing it live on how it's going through my head. So it seems like it's still around 70. So as I'm going through here, I'm actually eyeing out. You'll notice I'm not really that much on the throttle. Oh, it looks like throttle.
Don't think
isn't on for me.
Yeah, we don't have the trace.
Yeah, so that's fine. You can actually listen to the throttle positioning though. So as we go through, see how I made that correction to get my butt over to this right cone.
Yeah,
and I'm already eyeing up. Yeah, and I'm already eyeing up where I need to get to. So already started my turn in way back. As soon as we pass this cone, you can kind of treat it. I love offsets personally. Because it kind of takes some discipline to do offsets well. And I just love the car yawing. And then right here, I'm just going to point in on that cone, immediately eyes up. I should have honestly have done that earlier. But now my eyes are up on the slalom to see where I'm going. Already starting my turn in for the slalom. Now I'll play it through to the corner. Listen to the throttle. It only stepped out because I started flooring it. So I'll recap that real quick. And the reason why I'm recapping this part because it's very important, and this is what I learned from Strano because he has really good throttle work. So it's just a little dance on it. I'm not flooring it. I'm just being nice and patient with it, and the car is doing what I want it to do. So going back into the slalom, entry of the slalom, we're set. Already started my turn in. I'm going to use the yaw, 44 miles per hour. Remember how we're going between 40 and 48. I'm using the yaw. Now here, the car would naturally got upset, and it got upset on me the first few runs. So this one, I'm essentially switching from a fun drive to a more serious drive. And so my speed on entry is at 44, similar to how the slalom is. But now instead of lifting off the gas, I'm actually about maybe 50%. But it's just enough to keep me going. If you look at the tracer here on the mile per hour, I'm steady the entire way. So that means I'm fast enough or on the throttle enough to accelerate, but not, to stay steady, but not accelerate abruptly. And so as I'm going through this, where my eyes are looking are, okay, I set my hands. Does this angle, the way that the car is yawing, feel good to get to where I need to go? And if you look at my eyes, I just continuously look. All right, so what I'm scanning is where I'm at right now. I need to be mid or do I need to be tight? Where do I need to be? What's coming up next? I'm looking at all this. So I'm trying to figure out, hey, do I need to ease up off the gas and tighten up to this cone?
Yeah.
So that means my arc to here is going to tighten up, or do I stay steady mid corner and how my angles are, and it'll continuously arc around to this cone. So, oh, sorry, it's really this cone here. Sorry. But I'm just staying steady the entire time. Miles per hour, you can see, doesn't really increase or decrease too much. Still looking ahead. Does my arc looks like it's going to fit through here? I want to get to this kind of left cone here. So I'm going to get tight on this guy. All right, I'm good. I'm already halfway through the turn now. Now, here comes that little chicane coming up. Where do I want to be? I want to position the car that I'm backsiding this triple pointer. So that means I don't want to stay tight to this cone. This is where you're going to see me slide because of two things. I'm going to get greedy, which I tend to do. I'm going to get greedy because I see this as, yes, I just nailed that slalom. I'm going to get on it. And what I fail to remember is that the grade of the tarmac, it falls off. Or not the quality of it, but just the banking of it. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen if I start flooring on it, it's actually going to make the rear end slide because I have the right side of the car loaded right now. So as I start flooring it, right here, it gets off just enough, and I'm going to do a little counter because it's the diff is just going to kick out just a little bit, which is not what I wanted because now it took me off of my angle. Now I'm trying to get back in. So I was not anticipating the kick. What I was anticipating was the car adding distance. So
I see. Okay.
Figure eight. Yeah. So your standard figure eight drill is what you always think of in a steady state. In a steady state, you roll on the gas. It adds distance. It makes the car understeer. It pushes you to the wall. In this case, if I added some gas, it's going to push me out to this cone. If I ease up off the gas, it's going to push me to this cone. So that's what I'm just thinking about in here. Or you do it enough that you do it subconsciously. Now right here, I'm like, oh yes. In order to make this angle, I actually want to continuously push out and then get backside. And two things could happen here. The grade, and also, since we've gotten some good runs in already, the amount of marbling from others that have not tried to do what I try to do. Which is where Nationals screws me every time. Because I actually drive a different line than what is formed. And I tend to get in the marbles quite a bit.
Right, so that's all like the little pieces of, rubber and whatnot coming off of the other cars, right? They're not getting cleaned off because nobody's driving there.
Right. So it becomes, I've actually tried making that line through my runs. Try to clean it up myself. It doesn't work that great. I learned that from Initial D.
Just playing the really long game. After 10 runs of this, it'll be nice and clean.
Exactly. But that episode where he's cleaning up the mud or the construction area.
Yeah.
He's able to hit that outside line. But anyway, so car's getting off just a little bit, but all I was trying to do was add the distance to backside this cone. Since this is that chicane, I wanted to come in at an angle, brake hard, and kind of flick it. Now, is this the best approach here? Looking back at it, it probably isn't. But I tried to just flick the car because the car felt nice and controllable. I lost some speed by drifting a little bit, but that was the only way that I could think of to snap the car without hitting this. Because if I didn't snap the car, I would understeer to
right,
this
the
cone.
extra speed would have just carried you right out to it.
Right. And right now, I'm just at it, just caught it just enough. Now, am I worried about getting over to the left? No, because of what we talked about. There's a pincher cone. I have no reward in adding distance or taking this entirely slow to catch the outside left, to add distance here to the left, to make this a softer angle. There was no payoff in my mind. So I just stayed midline, lifting, letting the car yaw, and then I'm going to rewind it a bit, but listen to where my throttle actually picks up in that middle of that right-hander.
Yeah.
Did you get? So right away, so I literally tell myself, touch the gas, touch. kept me nice and composed. And it isn't that I'm flooring it, I'm just touching the gas. It helps the car complete the turn, because if I didn't, I would actually understeer and track out. And in this case, it brings it back in. You can see I quickly unwound and then got right back in it. Next thing here, I'm trying to eye out. I get a little confused a little bit on approaches like this. So I'm kind of fixated on this cone because of my braking, because I already know the angle from previous runs. So I'm actually fixated a little bit too much on that cone, which is bad. But what happens is that I feel confident as this cone gets into my view, and I'm scanning now towards that one, and I know what my angle should be. So notice that I just slide the car with no hesitation. So going back at it, I'll just run it play through. So right there, you can hear the throttle the whole time. So as I kind of go back, I'm looking at this as my sector. Okay, from that chicane. Actually, my sector to me is the chicane right at this point. It's really here at the start of the chicane. So let's go through this sector. I'll play that first. So that's my sector. I stop here because it's a harder braking area. So we'll recap on it. So as we come through, we already went through the chicane where my eyes are going through this bad boy, sliding the car, tracking out. So, although I'm still backsiding that entry slalom cone.
Yeah.
Making sure. One thing I also learned from Sam is when you're walking the course, how far am I from where the cone is? It's at least 3 feet, right? But how many people do you see when they walk in the course that walk up to
They're right up on it, yeah.
And what happens is it actually distorts you. I've done it for years, and it actually I figured out. If you try to remember where you're seated in the car versus where that front corner is, and always walk the course like that, you'll actually instantly know that you're a little bit faster. Why? Because your position in your mind where you quote unquote want to be is not going to be skewed. Because if I stand here when I'm walking, I'm going to think that I need to be there. Because I'm going to think back, hey, when I walked the course, I was right here. This is how it looked. Why doesn't it look that way? And I found out, at least for me, subconsciously, it's become not every situation, but in some situations, like, why does this look so damn different?
Yeah.
So I started walking over here. And I noticed him, JV, Shelly, when you walk with them, I'm always like, why does he turn in so late? Why is he not backsiding this cone like we all walk this edge? He walks it here. And so I stopped him. I was like, Sam, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And he explained that to me. I was like, you mother... The simplest things. The simple things. Just those little things.
It makes a lot of sense, right? Because we have such few looks at the course, right? That even subconsciously, like, programming yourself a little bit makes a difference. Like, that sensation you describe of, like, wait, I don't recognize this. You know, I think we all remember or have felt that, right? Versus parts of the course where you kind of feel like you've been there before, even though it's your first run. And so I think, I totally buy it that it would make a difference to, like, just physically position yourself, especially in a slalom when we're trying to get so inch perfect on things. 3 feet is huge. It is.
And so that's one of the things that I always try to remember to do. And again, I'm still not used to it, so I have to try and remember. So as we go through here, when I played it before, and we can look at the miles per hour, 47. From right here, look at my miles per hour, it's going to climb. So how I was saying, I already know the course, and it exits in a high-speed area. So everybody, you can start looking at it here. As soon as I get to this cone, just start getting on the throttle. Not necessarily flooring it, because the way that I noticed with the car, if it's fully loaded and you floor it, it'll fling you. Because it's softly sprung. In this case, then I'm going to just continuously roll on the gas, because I already passed this cone. The next cone does not matter. All I'm really doing is avoiding it. I don't need to worry about backsiding it. I just need to get in this gap is all I have to do. So I'm just figuring out where's that gap, and just setting my hands. And if I need to breathe, I'll breathe. But because of this velocity and this steering angle, if I lift, it's coming around.
Yeah.
So don't lift. Ease off. Don't even touch the brakes unless you have really good car control. I know you have some good car control, but that cone on this run, I believe, was tighter right there. Yeah. So just fish it through, and this right here is where it becomes a little suspect, because that cone wasn't there before. We can get over to the left to make this flat area of the sweeper easy.
Yeah.
But because there was that pincher cone and I still want to carry my speed through, I'm more over to the right than the left. And so now it becomes a Scandinavian flick at 60 miles per hour. So the only way to kind of balance that for me is trail braking.
Right.
So this is where I trail brake a lot. So I'm going to trail brake the whole time through here. Actually, no. Yeah, trail brake. I did trail brake through there. It's just that the Hertz didn't catch up with the miles per hour. So I trail brake entry through there. As soon as I see a daylight, I'm on it again. This one, I already know there's bumpy. Car is loaded. Last time I realized when I fully floor it, that the diff loads and unloads. So it'll tuck me in, hence my counter. But I'm just going to try and keep my foot down as much as possible and get through there with as much speed as possible. And that's the one that can become suspect. So in here, hard brakes, just fit through, move my hands, full throttle. Now notice I'm not as far over left as you were. I just didn't see the payoff. So I just came in here, stayed kind of square with it. Trail brake, hear the gas.
Yeah,
let me play that again. And it helps rotate the car. So come in, slow it down, and then immediately, as soon as you're here, if I was to let this coast, look, my mile per hour is you're at 30 at this particular juncture.
Right.
So this is yours. Let's go back a little bit. This is you through the slalom. Coming through. You actually broke a lot earlier than I, and hence right here you're kind of coasting. And you're taking this kind of right here, we're around the same mile per hour. Just on the exit. But then you'll notice that I didn't trip the lights at a little bit more speed. Or accelerating through. So
yeah, we can see a pretty big difference there in how much sooner you got the car turned.
And all that was really just rolling on the gas.
Rolling on the gas. Because, from my entry, I'm so much wider that you would almost expect it to be easier to turn the car, but I'm off throttle the entire time. And so you can see me, I'm hanging on to steering a lot longer.
Yep. And the thing is, and one of the reasons why I also wasn't getting that wide, you see this first cone?
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit me being out wide, because from here to there, that sharp angle, I can't get the car turned any better.
So even if I come out further, it's not like there's enough space.
Yeah. Because look at this. Between right here, you have to turn in there because the cone is there.
Because the cone's there.
How can you actually turn? You get no gain. Like this, because with left, you can't start turning right now.
So it's like if those left 2 cones were gone, then maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If these 2 cones were gone, I'll be diving in. Absolutely. Yeah. But because of these 2 cones, it keeps you honest for this right-hander, because there's a bunch of, this is where everybody's paddocked. So it's keeping you honest. So you can't come through here at 40, 50 miles per hour. You only can go through it at 30. So here, even right now, you can't turn, and we're at the first cone. Actually, we're approaching that second one. So that's why I was like, there's no point in going out wide. Where am I here? Oops. That's why, to me, I didn't feel as though going out too wide really helped. And then I'm just trail braking. This is where I trail brake a lot. So that way, I just feel super comfortable doing it. And then transitioning right to gas.
That felt good.
So that's it, man. That's it in a nutshell.
in a 2-hour nutshell.
yeah, pretty much. It is long, and that's the thing that I need. These type videos are going to be long, but I'm actually going to do this one, and I know we're still live. I'm going to actually keep it unedited just to see and get feedback from folks. So I'm going to end up the recording right now since it's been over an hour. But Edwin, thank you, sir.
Dude, this was fun.
Let me drive out there. That's awesome. But yeah,
oh my God! Now
we're having a conference call.
Oh my God! It's happening! It's happening!
Indeed. Well,
so, do you have to go right away?
You go ahead. No, you go ahead. I'll close out the video. You go ahead if you have any other words.
Oh no, I was gonna go into meta conversation about the videos, but if you want to close it out, close it out.
All right, guys. So thank you for joining. Thank you, Edwin. Please like, subscribe. It lets me know that you guys like the content. This was actually something that he asked me to push and do, or has always had the idea, never had the means of trying to do it. So hopefully you guys like it. Please comment down in the comments area. I know it's long, but it is essentially a sit-down class, and you're getting feedback from the person that I'm actually doing the VOD on, not just of me driving, which when the season starts, I'll just do myself. And then anybody that wants me to do VODs, let me know. Hey, and we can go from there. But thanks, Cal Autocross, for letting us even do these drives and videotaping and hot lapping in. So so thanks, guys. I'll catch you guys, and unfortunately there's no fuzzies to rub here, so we'll close out on that. Take care.